Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of I Have a Question. Yes, some of you might have thought, wow, what a sellout. 2 episodes and can't even follow up with the third. Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm not a sellout, but apparently I am terrible at being on tour and making podcasts at the same time. Once I hit the road, I had the intention of really wanting to stay on top of this because this podcast is something I've wanted to do for so long and I am really proud of it. But, I went on tour for the You, Me, and Us tour and it was amazing and magical and wonderful and it was so much work. And I kind of feel like my podcast fell on the back burner. Now, that being said, a great thing about being on this tour that I was just on was that I, had the opportunity to make a lot of new friends. And, when you're on the bus and you have hours and hours and hours of driving ahead of you, there's only so many, phone games you can play and YouTube videos you can watch before you find yourself having conversations with the people around you, which is amazing and awesome. And so through a lot of stimulating conversations, it got me thinking, what has been your most life-changing moment thus far?
Okay, so
Stuff like this is my favorite.
My most life-changing moment thus far is
What? So it's not exactly a happy one, I would have to say.
Is it running?
My most life-changing moment thus far is, I think, going out on tour with Garrett, because, it just shows, we've gone a lot of places, and, me growing up from where I grew up and, the background that I've been around, and it's hard to see a lot of people grow up and to be able to do, those things, going out to Europe and just traveling in the world and, playing shows in front of people. And so, I think that's the best thing, because, it's really shown me that, even though it's not, in a sense, so it's part of my dream to be able to travel the world and play music, but I know it's more so Garrett's dream, Yeah, it's my dream too, but seeing his dream actually coming true, I know that my dream still has work to, things to accomplish, but seeing his come true is just kind of cool to know that dreams do come true, and that's reassuring. So that's kind of the best thing.
The most life-changing moment of my life was when I signed my label Happy Sad over to Atlantic Records, and basically it was kind of it was a tough decision. It wasn't a tough decision because of anything that had to do with them. It just was a tough decision because I was an independent artist, and there's a stigma that comes in the music industry and in popular perception with signing to a major label, that it's kind of a bad thing to do, and that people kind of look down on it because you're not indie and all that anymore. And my whole thing was that I found a company that believed in me and my music as much as me as a person, and they put all of that over the industry. And on the other side of things, I had just come out of college, and I finished my first 4 years and graduated from USC, and I didn't have the money for 4 more years of law school, even though I kind of wanted to pursue music law. And I also wasn't going to get that money from my parents, and in fact, they were about to have to sell the house that I grew up in Los Angeles, and so I didn't want to see that happen either. And so I started taking meetings with labels and with my catalog of work and the people that I work with. Atlantic Records was the only option that I found suitable for housing my stuff. And it's been wonderful, and I wouldn't change a thing about it. But that was definitely the most life-changing moment of my life, is when I signed my record label over to Atlantic Records.
it was the second time I was kicking it with my friend Cecil. And at this point we had been I wouldn't say rivals, but just, we weren't friends. We knew of each other for a minute and we just didn't fuck with each other. And then we had to come together because my best friend started working with him on music. So it just became all right, fine, we'll kick it. So the second time we're kicking it, we're at Cecil's house, and his mom comes up and goes, Kat, she goes, you guys look hungry. Like, you guys need to get food. Like, stop working and get food. And we're like, no, it's all good. We're good. And she goes, no. You guys need to eat right now. So we're like, all right, fine. And then she gives us $100 and says, go get something to eat. There's like Quiznos had just opened over on Melrose and La Brea. So we're like, all right, we'll go to Quiznos. So we all hop in my car. It's like 8 dudes in this SUV. And we drive over to Quiznos. Go to Quiznos, we get our food, we chop it up, we take it to go, we get in my car. Now this is the moment. I hop in my car and we're driving out. And we had just so happened, like, the first time I kicked it with Cecil, we watched this show called Maui Fever. And there was this chick on the show called Shantae. And I remember she did like this dance move. And I was like, yo, I'm for sure gonna meet that chick one day and I'm gonna smash. So we're pulling out, this is the second or third time we're chilling, of this parking lot behind on like the back of Melrose. And I see her with this light-skinned chick. And I'm like, yo, I put my head fully out of my window while I'm driving. I'm like, yo, hold up. Are you Shantae? And she goes, yeah, I'm Shantae. Who the fuck are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm Matthew. Nice to meet you. She goes, yeah, okay. She goes, this your car? I'm like, yeah, this is my car. She goes, oh, okay, for sure. I see you. And I was like 16 and she's about 21. And she goes, yo, give your number to my sister. And I was like, for sure. Gave my number to her sister. Long story short, her sister became one of my closest friends and started taking me out all the time when I was a kid and started introducing me to a whole bunch of different people in the music industry. And like, I was just a really young kid, not from the Hollywood world, like been going to private school my whole life, off the back of my parents, just putting everything behind it. And all of a sudden, 17, still in high school, they opened my whole mind up to like everything that was kind of going on around me in a city I've grown up my whole life and just never seen. So I met this guy, Greg Whitman, who was the first person who took a risk on me and like literally moved me from Atlanta to LA, got me my own crib and like started like helping me learn everything about music, like put me in every studio and introduced me to all the producers and all these people that started giving me knowledge and investors. And literally because we just took this adventure one day, one person literally opened up my whole life to a whole bunch of shit. And I think we all credit it to that day. It was just kind of this snowball effect that came out of serendipity. But yeah, it always comes to mind. Yes, hell yeah, I smashed Cinco de Mayo. I met her May 3rd, Cinco de Mayo, we smashed. And like, it was, I think they put it on TMZ because we were hooking up in like this kitchen and like people knew who she was. So they started not snapping back then, they were just taking pictures and videotaping and sent it to TMZ. Yeah, so that was, I was like, yo, what the fuck is going on in my life? But she knows. And I told her I was 21 for like the first 7 months of knowing her. So, yeah, that's what happens sometimes.
Moving to LA to pursue music because my parents are extremely religious Jewish people, and everything about this lifestyle was contradictory to everything that they know to be a healthy and positive lifestyle. And so I think that the biggest challenge was kind of initially moving and then proving to them that, you know, this is like a sustainable lifestyle, like I'm okay, like I can support myself, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. And now we're in a good place, so I'm really happy.
That's awesome.
But that was the hardest thing.
Do they support your music?
Yeah, I mean, my mom listens to it more than my dad for sure, but my dad's like more interested in who I'm working with and like what I'm doing, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know if my music's like their type of music. I'm not sure. It's weird. It's an interesting question.
My most life-changing moment thus far has probably been moving from LA to Austin in January of 2015, not that long ago. Because it was the first time I shifted home base for the most part. I mean, I had gone to college and stuff, but hadn't totally shifted what I was calling home. Not that I don't visit anymore, but and just like all the circumstances surrounding it, like changing. Like it was like the first time I was like, yes, I'm gonna go after music. Like part of that felt like going after music for the first time. I'm gonna like get my life together enough to pay rent every month on time and like do that. don't know, it just felt like a very like a statement thing. Also, I was traveling with people who meant a lot to me, and like, I don't know, it all felt very symbolic every day being in the car, like on the way to this, because we drove. So like being on the way to this like new life. So like it was a very symbolic road trip, and like just a few days and weeks even like right after I got there. And so yeah, I don't know, that just totally changed my perspective. I mean, the world got a lot bigger for me then. So
well, when I was in my freshman year of college, I hope you don't mind, this might be a little bit of a long story. When I was in my freshman year of college, I was having a really hard time completing work, which was like a super, not something that I wasn't used to. And so I went to a doctor who prescribed, said I was like, had ADHD, which is something that I'd never, had before. And in addition to that, he said I had, social anxiety and general anxiety and generalized depression and like all this crazy shit that I never had dealt with before. And so his remedy for it was to medicate me really heavily. And I wasn't used to that, but you trust a professional all the time. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. And the medication got so heavy, like especially Xanax, which I was prescribed, like you have to take so many a day because your body gets used to it so quickly. So there got to be a point where I was like taking like 4 Xanax a day and like an antidepressant and Adderall and like all this crazy shit, to the point where it drove me so crazy that I had to like drop out of college. Like it got to so bad that I was like, I can't function. Like I was walking outside and I would take like 3-hour walks, and then I would pass out in like the corner of a street in a closed building for 10 to 15 minutes, and no one would help me. And it was just like really fucking intense. And I remember one time I was like 3 blocks away from my building, and I called like 2 of my best friends that were like in our friend group, and no one like would answer their phones. The only person that did like wasn't into helping me, all this crazy shit. And I was like, I have to leave New York. Like this isn't like the place to be. So I left New York, and I think the most life-changing experience was I was like, you know what, I'm fine. Like, I just have all these disorders, but, like, my medication is going to help me, when the truth is, like, that's what was prohibiting me from, like, creating and, like, having conversations and, like, being a person. So I got back to LA, and I decided that I was going to quit Adderall, like, cold turkey, because Adderall, like, in my opinion, is, like, the worst drug. Like, it really fucked with my head. So I stopped it cold turkey, and 2 months, or not even 2 months, I think probably like a month into it, my friends from New York, my 4 best friends, came into town, and we decided to like get in a jacuzzi and like drink alcohol and like have a good time. And I remember at one point we were in a jacuzzi, and this girl who was one of my best friends at the time ended up like scooting her arm, and we were all drunk, and she got a huge cut on her arm. And I was like, I looked at her and I was like, holy shit, you're bleeding, like a lot. And she was freaking out. So I was like, I'm going to go and get you gauze. So I went to her bathroom and I couldn't find anything. And in my drunken state, I was like, I'm going to drive my car to CVS and I'm going to get her gauze. And I was totally like there and everything, but I had just got out of the jacuzzi. I threw a dress on. I got in my car. I was driving. Halfway through me driving to get this girl gauze, I blacked out. And in that blacked out period, apparently, I don't remember this, I crashed into a truck that was parked. No damage to the truck. My car was kind of fucked, not fully. It really wasn't that bad of an accident, but apparently I got out of my car and I was running down the street and the airbag had gone off and like hurt my nose, so I was bleeding and my shoes were off, and I was running down the street and I ran into 2 people who were driving a different car, and the only thing I said is that I had to help my friend because she was bleeding. And I don't remember any of this. These people put me in their car. They drove to my car, called a towing company, and got my car towed without the police involved or anything. And the other truck that got in the accident never called because they had no problems with their car. But I like went back to my house that night totally blackout drunk, like told my mom that like all this like crazy shit. And then 2 days later, my parents said they were taking me to group therapy, and I was checked into like a rehab center. Like that was it. And it was like, that was like the fruition of like me not being able to work to what I thought I was going to be able to all of a sudden like the medication, because when you're on medication, your like tolerance is super low. So from me being on all this medication for someone who thought I had all these problems to like me being in this program, I was there from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. every day for 3 months. It was like an outpatient, but it was like, it was intense, it taught me like how to train myself to kind of keep my head down and like, go through this. And like, I was super in my head all the time. The things that I thought were emotions were really just like logisticalized feelings. Like I never actually really felt emotion in my life until I was pushed to actually feel things. And I think that was the biggest life-changing moment, because I can because of those 3 months in that fucking, outpatient, I now know how to, be emotional and sit here and be like, I'm sad. Like, this isn't just something that I'm feeling because of this. This isn't just a direct feeling because I was doing this. Like, no, I'm sad because I'm sad. And that was the biggest thing, because that happened. The song Insight that I wrote is about that. But I mean, I was 18 when that happened. So it was I learned how to feel emotion at 18.
Thus far, my most life-changing moment was in Seattle when everyone sang me happy birthday, and I was about to walk off stage, and then someone just started it, and then they finished it, and I cried, and I thanked them. It was really special, because that's never happened before, and that was my favorite.
My most life-changing moment was when I used to live in Mexico. I used to go to college over there. I was actually kidnapped for 3 days by Mexican cartel. Yeah, that was probably most life-changing, my most life-exchanging, or my crazy story of my life, I guess you can say. I guess I was just being at the wrong place at the wrong time. I never thought it could happen just like normal ass people, I guess, because you always see it on TV just happening to fucking rich ass people, people that are at the end of the day are somewhat they're influential. Yeah, they're influential, or they're connected to these people somehow or somewhere. But I was going to college. I was kicking it with my cousin. My cousin's a baseball player in Mexico, and no names. And a couple other friends that used to go to college with me.
Wait, so how old
and
were you?
then I was around 20, 19 or 20. And dude, this should be a fucking movie.
Wait, this sounds like a movie.
We were smoking weed at my fucking apartment. I used to live 3 blocks or 4 blocks away from where I went to college and shit. So my crib was known as because in Mexico everybody's so conservative and shit like that, you know what I'm saying? So everybody was like, oh, you smoke weed and shit. So there was a certain group of people that smoke weed. So my apartment was known as a pothead fucking, essentially, whatever. And then I was like, oh, you're going to Julian's crib, oh, you're going to go smoke. You're going to go smoke, and blah, blah. So that day after school, it was I think it was about to be Christmas break or some shit like that. And there's 5, 6 people at my crib. And one of them was my cousin, one of them 3 close friends of mine, and another one was my roommate. And no names again. And so we were all smoking and shit. And I used to live in a fucking apartment complex that had top 12 rooms all. And that's it. Just 12 rooms, the whole apartment complex. It was just a small apartment complex. And it had this big-ass gate at the front, but you couldn't see through it. It was just a big gate, kind of like a big-ass door, that was 6 foot tall and shit. But it was a sliding door because it was kind of like a garage right there where we parked. Anyways, they're knocking on the door. So every time you had a visitor, either you had to call them so you can go open the gate, or they had to call you, or they were going to bang on the door till somebody came to the door and they went to your room or whatever, you know? So they hear this fucking banging on the door, da, 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 and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm looking, by then, this apartment that I just moved in with my friend had tinfoil on the windows, all tinfoil on the windows, so no fucking sun could come in. A lot of Mexican people do that, no pun intended, but yeah.
Why?
So just so the sun doesn't come in. Plus it's super hot, so it keeps the fucking cold in. So they put tinfoil on the paper. So I couldn't see shit. I just could hear the banging on the door and just hella smoke in my fucking my crib. And just when my cousin and my friends chilling and shit, and I'm like, you hear that bang? And we're playing music and shit, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And by then, this is actually the first time when I started smoking weed. When I got out of college and I moved to Mexico, this is the first couple of weeks that I started smoking weed, and I just started smoking heavily, right when I started smoking. I never smoked in my entire life until I started going to college, and then I was like, what the fuck is going on? And there's this little piece of the fucking tinfoil that was ripped that you could see you can peep through it, kind of like a door hole and shit. And I was looking through it and I couldn't see shit. And I was like, all right, whatever. And I could just hear they're banging again. Ta, ta, ta. I can shorten the story if you want me to. Okay, and I'm just banging on the door. Ta, ta, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? and I'm just like, I see through the peephole again, and then I see Mexican military. I see the guys with the fucking like the helmet, the fucking bulletproof vest, fucking big ass AK, like, you know, just like military shit, like decked out military. And I'm high as shit, and there's like a pound of weed in my kitchen, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Dude, I grabbed everybody's joint, because everybody's smoking their own shit. I have this little cooler, those small coolers that was like up to the top with weed. I grab everything out of the fucking, I throw it all in this cooler, I grab the cooler, I run to the back, and to the back, there was this, I lived on the first floor, and this building was a 2-story building.
Yeah.
So in the back is where they have those things where you can wash your mop and shit.
Yeah.
So that shit went all the way to the, and it had no roof. Like, that was the only thing that it wasn't roofed. Like, it was like a kind of like a small cubicle, like outside. It was a weird like place. You had to see it to understand more. And I grab that shit and I throw the cooler up, and it goes up to the roof, and it just stays at the roof. And I'm just like, I don't give a fuck about that weed. And it was like a pound of weed there. I was like, I don't care about the fucking weed. Next thing I know, I'm in that little cubicle outside thinking, should I just go to the roof and run? Like, I'm so scared at this point. At this moment, I hear the fucking military going to my fucking apartment. And through my back, there's a window that went through my fucking roommate's window, that his door was open, that it went straight to our fucking living room. So from all the way to the back, I could see it straight to my living room, you know? And I see a fucking guy standing in the middle with the fucking gun like this. Like, get everybody, get out of the house and shit. I was like... in shock, dude. I was just like, what the fuck do I do? Like, my cousin was already outside. My fucking roommate has just gotten out of the shower. He was with a towel, like, on his fucking, like, his waist and shit. And I'm in the back when one of my friends is like, dude, should we run? And the only thing I can think of, I was like, if I run, would they think I'm somebody and they try to shoot me in the back? Like, I was like, fuck this. And I was like, everybody out of the house. And they asked my cousin, I was like, who's in the house? It's like, there's 2 more people. So they knew for sure that it was like, because I could hear him. Like, my apartment was so small that you can hear everything, you know what I'm saying? And then I was like, what the fuck? And then they came in, they searched like our entire apartment and shit. And ended up finding out that one of the guys in the fucking roof, like, not in the roof, but one of the guys that lived like above us was like a huge like cartel dude. And they found like fucking like that, like fucking tons of fucking coke and dollars, like US dollars, guns, and all this shit in his apartment. And I was friends with this dude because I didn't know he was into that shit.
Yeah.
But every day he would come in with the crazy ass car and shit, and I just had an idea. I was like, this dude must be doing some like cricket and shit, you know what I'm saying? But I never knew. And that night, one of the cartel dudes came to our apartment because he knew that we knew him. He knew that he talked to us. And it's because I talked to the dude that they got. When he got put in, they took him in, when they brought him in, he said my name. He's like, no, this is all lies. Like, Julian knows that this is all a lie. He's the only person that can remember my name. Like, I was the only one who talked to out of the whole fucking apartment. And he said my name. So the dude, one of the cartel dudes came to my apartment and shit. And he's like, yo, it's like, are you Julian and shit? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I'm Julian. I was like, well, El Gordo dijo tu nombre. And I was like, that dude said your name and shit. And then I was like, we need you to do something for us and all this other shit. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I opened the door of my apartment, dude just walks in my house. And then I'm standing at the door with the door open when this dude is like sitting on my couch already telling me all this stuff while I'm like just sitting at the door with the door open. I'm like, and then like, I don't know, he just pulls out like a whop of cash. Like, I ain't never seen so much cash in my life. Just put it on my phone. He's like, this is for you. And I was like, whoa. It's like, tomorrow is gonna go your car picking you up, blah, 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 blah. Like, this is a cell phone that you're gonna be using. They gave me a cell phone, all this other shit. Me and my roommate were involved in this shit because we were both like witness up to their eyes and shit.
What?
So I'm like, whoa, dude, like, what the fuck is going on? Couldn't sleep for like weeks and shit. And like, after that, the next day they called us and shit. By the way, this is the funniest thing and the stupidest thing I ever done in my life. That night, that money that they gave me, I went to the club and I bought fucking bottles and bottles and bottles and bottles with that money that they gave me.
So you blew all the money.
I blew all the money that they gave
at the club.
that night. Oh my god, I'm never gonna forget that. And the next day we were supposed to go to a different city because they wanted us to testify in a fucking judge thing. I guessed it. and they took me to a different city. They drove me to a different city. Right when I was about to go to like into a fucking courthouse, pretty much, a crooked ass fucking lawyer took me to a side and told me this whole story that I needed to say. It's like, you're gonna say this. You got there. These guys were playing dominoes. Total bullshit story. You know what I'm saying? And this guy, I'm like right next to the courthouse, and I'm in a fucking alley with a fucking cartel dude and some fucking crooked ass lawyer.
Okay, so then what happened?
So I go in, and then we do all that shit. We come back out. They take us to this big ass fucking dinner, like expensive ass fucking dinner in Mexico and shit, in a different city, 3 hours away from where we lived. And then the way back, there was this dude, and I was like, yeah, Julian, you're gonna be driving the whole time and shit in the way back. And I'm like, all right, like, what the fuck? And this dude started getting so fucked up, and he had a fucking revolver right here on his leg. He was doing lines of coke up the fucking ass, and he was sitting right behind me, and my friend was sitting co-piloting me, and this dude, I can see like his fucking like gun right here, and like he just pulled out a bunch of coke and shit, and he made me stop to get a 30-pack and shit. And it's just like getting mad fucking drunk and shit in the back of my seat. And it's like, if cop stops us, don't even worry about it. We're good and shit. Like, ain't nothing that can happen to us right now. We did what we needed to do and shit. Going to this other city and shit. Like, the whole time that I was driving back, and I could see this dude in the rearview mirror with, like, getting fucking faded as fuck, I was like, yo, this nigga's gonna shoot me in the head right now. There was not another thought in my head that this dude's just gonna get fucked up, told me pull over and gun shoot me. Like, that was the fucking the three longest hours of my fucking life. Like,
Was your roommate scared?
we were both like just silent as fuck. Like, we didn't even know what to say. Like, we didn't know what to conversate with this nigga. You know what I'm saying? This nigga kills people and shit. Like, I don't know. For me, that was like the most like psychological shit, like mind shit. Like,
Wait, so you get home.
so I get home, and they're just like watching us for like a straight week, like making shit. Like, I wouldn't not want to do whatever they told me, because it made me feel like, well, what if they thought I was the one saying, like, telling on them or some shit, you know? So for like weeks, they're just like, I go outside my house and they're right there.
I think part of the reason it was so hard for me to complete this episode was because once I asked the question, what's been your most life-changing moment thus far, I realized that at the end of this episode, it was going to be my turn to answer that question. And I think I was a little bit scared to share my story. So bear with me. Here it goes. My most life-changing moment thus far was St. Patrick's Day of 2015, March 17th. I was sitting at the Hudson, which is a restaurant in Los Angeles, with a group of my girlfriends. We were celebrating St. Patrick's Day with St. Patrick's Day drink specials and appetizers and giggles and laughs and stories. And I got a call from my dad. And when he called me, I kind of knew before I answered the phone that something was wrong, so I got up from the table and I answered the phone, and he sounded really distant, and he sounded really cold, and he asked me to come home. He said he was having a difficult time and he needed me to come home. Now, the thing is my dad has not once since I moved out of the house at age 18 has he asked me to come home. Not when I was in college, not when I have been on tour or living in Los Angeles, or has my dad ever asked me to come home. But he did. He said, I need you to come home. Could you get on a plane in the next hour? I've already bought your plane ticket. And I kept trying to ask him, why? What's going on? What's wrong? I don't understand. He was like, I just need you to come home. I'm having a difficult time. I need you here. So I got up from the table and I went back to my apartment and I packed up my things and I got in an Uber and I went to the airport, and the whole time I was thinking to myself, he's sick. He's going to tell me he's sick. He's going to tell me he has a week left to live. He's going to tell me, there's something wrong with him. And I was so scared because my dad is the most important person in my life. Like, my dad is my everything. So I was so scared that something was wrong. So he picked me up from the airport and he met me at the gate, and his face was just sunk. Like, it looked like there wasn't any life in it. And so we're standing at the baggage claim, and I just, kept pressing him, what's wrong, what's happened, what's wrong? And he was like, we'll talk about it in the car as well. We'll talk about it in the car. So we get in the car, and we are exiting the airport, and he pulls off right as you go to pull out of the airport, and he starts to tell me a story about my mom. And I knew before the story was over that she had passed away. I knew that she had died. Well, without getting into the details, mostly because even after a year and a half, I'm still not really comfortable talking about them. My mom had decided that day to take her own life, and my dad had found her. And I sat there in the car while he told me this story, and I knew right then and there that my whole life was different and that it was never going to be the same. And it hasn't been. My mom and I had a very estranged relationship. There were a lot of things left unsaid between the two of us. I always had assumed that we would get the opportunity to talk about them. I moved back to New Mexico for 7 months. We started the process of packing up her things and, saying goodbye. Sorry. Everything changed. But on a more lighter note, with that change and that heartbreak, also came enlightenment and now, down the line, gratitude for the lessons that I've been forced to learn in the wake of such a horrible situation. I surrounded myself with love, and I surrounded myself with positivity. And there were some people that couldn't handle it and they left. And there were some people that came into my life to hold me even tighter. And through the incredible support system and friends and family around me, I've made it through. And I've had a really wonderful few months, and I laugh and I smile, and I have this job that I love with my best friend and my partner and my other half. And I have these incredible friends, and, they really helped me ride through this. So it was the most life-changing moment because I lost, my mom, but I also gained an appreciation for the people around me, and an appreciation for the importance of treating everyone around you with so much love and respect, because you don't know when if it might be the last time. And also, realizing that life is this precious thing, and that we can't just waste it. Like, you have to appreciate every day, and you have to appreciate every person. And I'm sure I'm going to listen back on this and it's going to be rambling, but here it is. This is my stab at trying to tell you guys this story. But I don't know. Love each other. As cliche as it sounds, love each other, because love is what makes the world go round. And with that being said, thank you so much for listening to my story and so many others. I promise you I'm going to be better about this podcast. I promise you're not going to have to wait like 2.5 months for episode 4. Tweet at me, message me, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have ideas. Let me know your question ideas. I want this to be interactive. I want this to be not just my podcast. I want this to be our podcast. So thank you, and I love you all, and I hope you have an absolutely phenomenal day, week, and hopefully not a full month before I get to deliver you guys episode 4. Mwah!